now it feels like it flows more, even though I still like find myself complaining about projects, here and there. But there's more, things just feel like they're
That's normal.
unfolding on their own.
It's funny for me to hear you say that because in my mind and my perspective, just through our conversations, I feel like you like got to a place much faster than I did when it comes to being in more alignment because I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. Like I genuinely feel like there've been so many times where we've talked and you have in a way inadvertently coached me through my you know what I mean? Like where
Mm,
I would get stuck in these ruts and then we'd have conversations because we do very similar work. Like
definitely. Yeah.
the thing is that for you to say that I'm like, girl, I'm like I'm sitting here like, oh, Sarah's got her shit together. Like
Well, you know what? It's good to hear that because I can like go back to tell my business coaches and be like, that those like years of business coaching I did totally paid off. Like I was on
Uh-huh.
that, I'm talking to my coaches being like, help me. But then like when I'm talking to you, it sounds like I got it all together. There we go.
Welcome to another episode of Graphic Content, the podcast where we talk all things who, why, and what the fuck. Today, my guest is a very special human being to me in my life. She is the co-founder and creative director of Superfein Creative. She's the mind behind the Self Reunion. She's a branding and web designer, and she was my housemate when I was in university. Sarah Feinstein.
Thank you. Thank you. Love the intro.
Was it appropriate? Do you think it hit all the marks?
Yeah, definitely.
When I was making notes of like, before each episode, I'm like, okay, what are like a couple things that summarize the guest in a way that is, like talks about what they do, but then if we do have a relationship, like what that is, and just writing like OCAD, and then thinking about like those days, I'm just like, oh my god,
Those days, man. Do you ever think about just before we like get into things, OCAD and like if you could go back now as like the person you are to go through OCAD, how like completely different of an experience it would be?
I would rock the shit out of that
Right?
program. Like it would
I
be,
know,
I
totally.
know. I cared, but I didn't care at the same time. Like I was so involved in like like they make it seem like it's so
Ugh.
you have to the narrative that is pumped into your brain as somebody who's in the graphic design program. And like listen, I loved my time at OCAD. Like I'm not saying anything, but they pump it into your brain that you have to be everything, like a jack of all trades. You need to know web design, you need to know creative direction, you need to know editorial, you need to know typography, like every single video editing. And like now, I mean, everyone is kind of like that anyway, but I feel like it was so like, how am I supposed to do 100 jobs at
Oh
once?
yeah. I know I took it very seriously. Like like all of it like too much though, like
Yeah.
it like makes you think that like life is always like what the container of like the school experience is, and it is
Mhm.
not that. And I wish I could have like enjoyed like a little bit more. Like I had a lot of good times, but like man, I really felt like the stress and the pressure, and I wish I could have just enjoyed what it's like to
Yes.
be a student, like a creative student. Like it is like some
Mhm.
of the best programming out there. Like if you're a creative person, like getting to work on projects of like your own creation and like
I know.
execute it in whatever way you want. And then you get to like stand up there and like talk about like all the ideas. I feel like now it'd be like fun to do it. Where at the time I like took it so seriously. I'm like, oh, I wish there was like a little bit more fun that I've been able to like infuse in it. But here we are.
No, but that's like 100%. I look back and I took everything so I was so, oh my god, my grades, and because I just have this insane standard for everything. And I had a class called mark making. Okay. The teacher was like, okay, so, and we like, I'm not kidding. This is like first year. So for anybody who like hasn't been in taken art class or going to art school, the first year usually, especially in a design program, is very more like immersive in like all types of art, whether it's like painting, drawing. So it's kind of like getting your feet wet in that world before you really dive into like, you know, technology.
Mhm.
And one of my classes was mark making. And so the teacher, I forget her name. I think it was I think that's what it
Yeah,
was.
that sounds familiar. Yeah.
And she was this like very like hippy dippy, and I say that with love, like not in a derogatory way. And she was like, we're doing the, you know, the stereotype where everyone's sitting at an easel and we're all facing the middle of the class in a big circle. She's like walking around the middle, holding court, and she's like, you know, back in the she's like, she's like motioning with like a fake cigarette, and she's like, you know, back in the in the 80s and the 70s, we would sit around and we'd smoke cigarettes with our paints, and you know, probably not great for us with our the chemicals that were going on and all this. And she's talking about how like you're gonna make marks on the page, you want to intentionally make a mark, and I'm sitting there like, what? Like I went to like basic art classes in high school, so going from that to this, and I'm like, making marks, what does that even mean? And then now, like, you know, if you're looking at it from a more highbrow perspective, then you're like, okay, I can see that. But
Totally.
when you're 19, you're like, what the fuck is she talking about?
It's funny because I actually had like a slightly different experience. I also love that our conversation is right here, right now in OCAD days. But I came from a fine art world because I did like two
Oh
years of a
yeah.
fine art program. So I'm used to like fine art drawing classes and painting
Hmm.
classes, like a lot of life drawing. And then I like get thrown into like a design program, and I'm
Hmm.
like trying to bring that like fine art is like about the art into design. And so actually like my first several years were also really hard in OCAD because I felt like I just wanted to be like an artist in the space of design and like didn't know how those two worlds came together. And I
Hmm.
like I really, really struggled, um, like trying to be like, how does this all apply to like the design program? And so it's funny. I would like loved those like mark making ones because I'm like, oh, this is like the fine art training. And then we'd get into like some more of like the hardcore typography ones. And it's like, make a really creative, like you can only use letters, no color, no shape, no nothing. And like make a movie poster using only type. And I
I
was
did that
like, oh
one.
my God, like I have no idea what to do. Like, what do you mean I can't use like anything else?
But that makes so much sense for who you are as a creative today, because that's what you do. Like to you, you know, a lot of times like I feel like for me, I've kind of not completely moved away from it, but I don't, I'm not painting or making art on a regular basis. And so, you know, to hear you talk about, oh, like I was struggling with that dichotomy, or that, you know, not being able to mash the two together, and now looking at, you know, Superfine, you're kind of doing it. Like you're
It's
doing
true.
what
Totally.
you
Totally.
found a way.
I did find a way. It was actually like a couple teachers who I feel like really brought it out of me. And then like year three, expressive typography, which like the rules got a bit like looser at that point.
Hmm.
I feel like they really like helped me find like how to blend the worlds. And then like as we like left school, it was like that fine art background that like helped because I'm sure you know what it was like at the beginning. You're like trying to do work for people, and like most people's content is not great. Like sorry, like startup business owners. Like, and it's fine. Like we all have to start somewhere, you know? But like
Hmm.
so people would come and they're like, "Hey, like I want a website." And they have like no logo, and then they like don't have anything, like no assets to work with, like maybe some type if you're lucky, like maybe like a not so great photo. I mean, like now the clients I work with is different, but when you're starting out and you're like trying to take on any work, so
Hmm.
it's like those fine art skills help to like create the content that like I needed to work with. Like you need more than type on a website. Like, okay, cool. Like I'll draw the logo. Like we need an illustration here. Like, sure. Like why not? Like I'll fill that in. I can make something, you know, like, oh, I had like a couple years of like, you know, darkroom practices and photography while I was doing my fine art degree. Great. I know how to take a good photo. Like I can fill this in. So it like definitely like later on all of that fine art training like helped like kick off, I feel like super fine, like we could start at a maybe a higher level than like we should have been because we could like bring in like that like artistic skill to like fake it while we made it kind of thing.
I mean, that's everybody though, right? Like
It's
we're
true.
all,
Yeah.
even when
We're
even
all,
when you
yeah.
even when you've made it, you're still faking
Totally.
it. Like
You're
I'm
still
like,
faking it. I know.
I
Still
feel
have
like
no idea.
I'm doing this. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Like, but no, I agree with you, because not to be like, the foundations of my, you know, like my practice or whatever, but it's true. Like I look back to being younger and thinking, okay, I love to draw, and I'm lucky that my mother pushed me to go towards the direction of a creative path. But you think as a kid, I honestly thought I was gonna be a lawyer. I was like,
Wow.
oh, I like I
I mean, I
loved.
could actually picture it in like a parallel universe. I could totally see it.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I don't know. Like, I just feel like I'm too sensitive. I'd be like, "Oh, stop yelling at me!" Like I'm in court. Like, like I'm like I can't do this. I don't like it. But like I thought I was gonna be a lawyer because I'm like, oh, art is not viable. It's not something that I can do as
Mm.
a career. And my mom was the one that was like, oh, there's this thing called graphic design. And I look back to even when I was in school, and I was like grade school, and I had to make this. There was like a project on like some French Canadian history, which at this point, who knows if that's even true, right? Now that everything's coming out with everything, and we had to like basically um, print out images and text, and then lay them out on like a trifold paper.
Mm,
And I was
mhm.
like, I think this is the first thing I ever did that was like graphic design at like the age of 10 or 11. And it's like each line of paper was like measured
Oh,
and glued in as like an article with the images and then the graphics. And it was like all, I'm like, I think this is the first thing I ever did as graphic design.
nice. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It goes far back. On the topic of Superfine, I feel like that, like, how long have you been doing that?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I branded Superfine at our grad show at OCAD. Like that's when I first came up with the name because the teacher's like, try and come up, like you could either have your name, but if you can come up with a brand, like do it. And so it came to me. So that's how I kind of like branded myself for the show. But I didn't maybe start really doing anything until so if we graduated 2012, or I did. And then I was like doing logos for friends, small work, but it probably would have been like 2013 where like the government came like knocking at my door being like, "Hey, time to like pay back your loan." And I was in India at the time and Zach who's now my business partner, life partner, at that time he was working like learning to like do like some web coding, and like that's when I threw up the idea like, hey, like let's maybe try and like design some websites. You know coding, I know design. So I guess that would have been like winter, yeah, 2013. When I think about it though, like our first year, I feel like we maybe got like one website job, like, and then it like took some time to like get rolling. Like I started going through my
Yeah.
dad's like email list, and then we got like more jobs. But I think maybe that first year it was like one official website.
That's more than what I was doing. I think my first year, I did like like a logo and like a couple things. Like it was, I think about like what I made like financially
Oh
that
my
first year, and I'm like,
God.
girl, it's like it's basically like 1 month's rent, and that's
Totally.
about it.
Totally.
Like not sustainable in that first couple of years.
Yeah.
But when you started it, like you said, you started it out of necessity
Yes.
because you're like, okay, I need to make some money. When you went into it, did you think like I'm going to be like web is where I'm going?
No, like not at all. And I get like I really didn't. I actually and like if we like I mean I at the grad show, like I feel like so much of the work I was like really interested at the time was print. Like that seemed like if we go back to like that analogs of fine art, like things that you can pick up and hold, and
Hmm.
where there's like some handmade thing where like I'm working on the computer, but I have to print it out to understand like how it feels as an object. Like I really liked that.
Hmm.
Um but then I was, in India, just like spending a summer there after graduation, and then which kind of like turned into the winter. And I needed to make money, and like I can't do a print job like there. So it felt like logos and like web design would be like maybe the only way that like if like while I was buying time, because at that point like 2013 I still really thought I was like going to end up in Toronto maybe, or like some city
Hmm.
like working at an agency. So I'm like, I want to, not go back right away. I need to buy myself some time. I need to make money. Like the only way I can make money is in like a digital format. So it was like
Yeah.
logos and like identity, and then also websites. So it was kind of, yeah, like a total, this is what I have to work with. Like, let's figure it out.
Girl, we're in the same boat because I like anyone who knows me, I started GeoGraphic. It was a clothing company. Like I remember like
Yeah,
when I was doing
I
like
do
shirts and
remember.
and everything, like all apparel and all the stuff. And it looked cool. I loved it, but it was one of those things where I realized very quickly. this is not, I'm not going to make money doing this unless I'm massive. Like I'm a huge entity. And so like, I am like, what's something that I can, that translates to what I can do. And I was like, I'm going to go into branding because I can easily sell that as a product and as a service. And it's benefited me for the last, which on Monday actually will be 8 years that I've been running Geographic.
Amazing. All
Yeah.
right. I wonder, like, I bet the that like making your own store and like products, like I feel like we're really lucky. And I think as entrepreneurs, like you're
Hmm.
constantly like skill stacking.
A
And
hundred
like
percent.
sometimes like things at the beginning or like you have like these side projects or ideas, and they're like often like not the right time. But like what you learn, like kind of like taking like a little walk down like a different path, like you end up stacking like a crazy amount of skills. And I bet like what you did there is gonna like come back in like a different like iteration, probably like, I mean, now, not long from now. And like
Hmm.
you'll be able to use like all of that. And it's so valuable to have like had like gone through that already once before. Cause like to launch a store of your own products and like to put that all together, that is like a lot of work. I mean, that's like a lot of the work I
So
do
much
for
work.
people. But like to like understand what's involved in that is like so valuable. So it'll be cool to like see how all of that like previous work comes back for you.
It already is. I even just this project,
Yeah, it's true actually. Yeah.
video editing, audio editing, all of this. I have no history or background in this. This is not something I've ever learned. It's all self-taught. Even just understanding like how and when to post, like doing social media for, there's so many things that go into it. No one's gonna see this at the beginning. There's gonna be like my friends and family. Like you're gonna watch this. You know what I mean? Like let's be real. But at the maybe your mom.
Definitely, definitely my mom and my
Carol.
dad.
Yeah, oh yeah. And so it's like but all of the skills that we learn over the years because we've been forced to do these things, right? Like we don't have I don't have an assistant, you don't have an assistant. We don't have people, I mean, not that I know of, maybe you do, but maybe
I've
the
got a junior designer, not an
that
assistant.
but you know what I mean? Like
But
where it's
yeah,
somebody who is doing something for
totally.
you. And I'm like, I just gotta learn it. And I actually like that. Like, so going back to what we were saying about, being in school and our teachers being like, you need to know all these skills. And me thinking, this is a lot. How is one person supposed to know all these things? But now, it's actually facts.
Definitely. And what I find is really fun and enjoyable is like you go through and like so many different like kinds of learning. Like if we're like thinking of like school was like the first round and then you get out and there's like another like evolution.
Hmm.
And then like you're coming back now and like launching this big project, like the level of refinement that
Oh
you
yeah.
get to launch with becomes very
A,
satisfying.
a
Like I remember
parent.
it took yeah, and it took so long. Like, and I think I mean most creative people I know have gone through this where you're trying to make something that you imagine in your head and like you execute it and you're like it's good but like dang like like I know it can be better. And then like finally like in my we're now in our like what like mid late 30s, and now when I produce things I'm actually like really pretty pleased with it for the most part, like content, like that level
Mhm.
of refinement that I was like looking for and like waiting for it to arrive in my 20s is here. And so like with every piece of work and when we're doing these personal projects it feels really fun and satisfying because you're like oh man, like all of that hard work, all of that like thousands of hours where you're like, this is not right. This doesn't look good. Like, why won't it look how I want to? Like, a magic happens where, like, now it's like comes out kind of like exactly as you imagine. Or if it isn't, you know exactly what needs to be done to like have it be that like really refined vision that you have in your head. And to have that alignment is like very satisfying as a creative.
You have always been somebody who I like, you're like me where we want things to be perfect. We take pride in the work that we do, and regardless of it being for a client or if it's our own work, like, we want
Oh,
to
yeah.
put our best foot forward. But at the same time, I feel like there with you there's like a bit of a duality because as much as you're focused on the results, you are very much somebody who lives in that like true essence of the journey. As cheesy as that sounds, like you're really about like exploration and how do I find meaning in this, and how do I take a pause and look at the project or my work or my evolution from a bird's eye view. I know this is so like cheesy interview question, but like where does that come from? Like why are you very much like that?
Honestly, I have. No idea. I think it was like one of those things that I'm just like, no, totally. I think I was born with it because when I like think about like my trajectory as like a creative person,
Yeah.
like that thread of being like open to exploration and trying things was there right from the beginning. Like maybe it comes from my parents who did not give me coloring books as a kid. They only gave me white paper, like blank paper, because they didn't want me to color in between the lines. So right from the very beginning, it's like I didn't have anything to like, boundary within.
Mm.
And even I remember like went to my parents' office a lot as a kid, and there was a woman there who was a really amazing illustrator. She worked, I think, as like the receptionist. So I remember going to her and I would like tell her about these elaborate scenes to draw for me. So then I did have something to color in. But
Mhm.
like I like draw this like whole zoo scene and I would tell her like the animals I wanted in. And then I'd photocopy it a million times so I could like do all these different variations. But then from like drawing, it was like, wanting to play with like pottery and like basically like any kind of art supply I could get my hands on. And then as a kid, like my parents brought us camping, like that was our activity. So it's like run around the forest, basically like go spend hours like playing in the water, like make believe games, like
Mhm.
in your head. And like that's been my thread. Like here, there's like a school trip to like Costa Rica. Like, yeah, if you work hard and save your birthday money, like go do that. And out like, exploring anything creative and then wanting to go to like Victoria to like go away from school and then to Toronto. And so I think that like thread of like wanting to just like explore and like take in the world has been there from like the very beginning. But I would say that like there's also been a shift though, while I'm still like very much into exploring the world and love it. Like several years ago, it felt like the exploration then like turned more internal.
Mhm.
Um, and kind of like and I know you kind of know that like the spiritual work in a way,
Yeah.
like the inner work, kind of exploring. There's definitely like a inner exploration at some point, and I actually don't know exactly when it happened maybe, but like that felt like it was important. So much of my exploration then shifted to um being like, yeah, curious about who am I
Yeah.
guess is like the
Yeah.
main thing. Who am I? What's this world like? What am I in this world? Like what does it all mean? So then like my exploration turned there, and then it kind of like started weaving in and out of like the world, like the outside world, my inside world, and all that exploration.
I vibe with you on that, and that's something that I feel like as we got older, because when we were younger, like let's say like the foundation was there. There's that. Here we are again. The foundation, but the foundation was there of we're very like creative people. We are maybe like a little left of center in how we view the world. But I feel like the more like internal work came as we got older, and that's something we
Oh,
really connected
definitely.
on. Because like I didn't really get into thinking about what am I doing, like what am I, why am I here, what's happening to me, until I was about, like, I want to say like 28, which is around the time I left Toronto. In my goals of like what I wanted to do when I went to OCAD and when I started school, in my mind it was I want to work, I want to work in advertising or marketing. I want to be like a Mad Men vibes. Like that was
Mm-hmm.
my
Oh yeah.
goal, right? Because it's
Totally.
also, but it's also like it's pushed on us. Like you think like,
Yeah.
oh, that's the goal, right? And then you start doing it, and I was doing it and I was like, I hate my life, like this is not for me. And then you start to you start to question, like I left a small town, moved to the city, lived my big gay life, whatever, was doing all the things, and then I was like, I feel so empty. And it's no, like everyone has their path. Like I'm not shitting on anybody. If you feel connected to something, go for it. Like, but for me as an individual, it just wasn't resonating anymore. And then that's when I started to really think like, what am I doing? Who am I? What's my purpose? And like, and not like in this big, like I'm going to save the world, but for me, as
Yeah.
what's the energy that I'm working on? And it's been 10 plus years of that, and I feel like finally, like you're saying, where work and life are starting to mesh, like in a way that is more copacetic for my like betterment mentally. Like I'm actually starting to think about, who am I working for, what am I doing, what's my output.
Absolutely. I totally get that. And it's interesting because I felt like how some of that happened. Like I came to India, I was here. and then started Superfein as like a way to stay because like so that would have been like 2012, 2013, learning for the first time like what it meant to do some of this like inner work to question. I guess that's what
Mhm.
it was. Like I didn't question anything until I
Yeah.
like came to India, you know? Like I remember thinking like even in OCAD, okay, cool. So like I'm pretty stressed. Like I'm going to end up working for an agency and like living in a city, and like I guess that's going to be my life. Like I'll have like fun on the weekends with people, and like I'll have like some hobbies, and like is that it? And not that like there's necessarily anything wrong with that
Yeah.
for people that love that, but it just felt like for myself like that can't be it. Like there has to
Mhm.
be more. But I felt like I actually had no idea what more could be and even like how to approach that. So I just like stayed here in India. And because living was like pretty cheap compared to Toronto, it felt like actually like I didn't hit the, oh, like what am I doing? Like what is this work? Like I'm feeling stuck in the work for quite a few years later. Like I think maybe you hit that before I did because I didn't have to like take on as many projects to be able to like afford to live here. So it was like spending all of this time actually like exploring those questions like who is Sarah, like what is my place in the world, like I know what I think I am, but like when you peel back the layers, it's like how much of it is like the roles that you decide to play versus like the roles and the ideas that your family put on you in society, like all of these
Yeah.
things. And so I was like spending like I guess my later 20s trying to just uncover, and then also like within the greater picture of things. And then so I was like taking on these projects, and like the work actually like sometimes we didn't always love it, did paid great but paid enough. But then it was like there's something that shifts where like all of a sudden like we're getting jobs that paid more, and clients
Mhm.
want more, and the work felt like challenging in a new way, which was great. But then that's when like all of a sudden like that's when the things come up, you know, where like
Yeah.
you feel like all of a sudden you realize how like sometimes underpaid you are for like what you have to deal with.
Girl, the
And
statement of the year.
yeah, and then that's when I was like, what am I doing? Like I'm doing all of this exploration and this lights me up, but now I've like found myself in like this work situation is like, so I think I hit mine actually like, quite a bit later. You know, it took like a couple of years to like then like figure out, and what you said, like now I feel like I found that flow and things just go on their own. And I know like balance for me is like probably not for for most people. And I guess that's the cool thing about balance, like you find what works for you.
Mhm.
But but then now it feels like it flows more, even though I still like find myself complaining about projects, you know, here and there. But there's more. Things just feel like they're
That's normal.
unfolding on their own, you know?
It's funny for me to hear you say that because in my mind and my perspective, just through our conversations, I feel like you like got to a place much faster than I did when it comes to being in more alignment because I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. Like I genuinely feel like there've been so many times where we've talked and you have in a way inadvertently coached me through my you know what I mean? Like where
Mm,
I would get stuck in these ruts and then we'd have conversations because we do very similar work. Like
definitely.
you're
Yeah.
it the thing is that for you to say that I'm like, girl, I'm like I'm sitting here like, oh, Sarah's got her shit together. Like
Well, you know what? It's good to hear that because I can like go back to tell my business coaches and be like, you know, that you know, those like years of business coaching I did totally paid off. Like I was on
Uh-huh.
that, you know, I'm talking to my coaches being like, help me. But then like when I'm talking to you, it sounds like I got it all together. There we go.
It does sound like it, and I mean, listen,
Yeah,
it's not gonna be like a straight path, but I feel
totally.
you're at a point now where, girl, you've put in the hard yards, and it's it's still TBD. Like we're always working on stuff, but I feel
Definitely.
like you have put in so much work. Like you're working with like really great clients right now.
Yeah, I am. And I would say that like I've put in a lot of the hard work, but I also am really lucky. I have two partners,
Hmm.
business partners who are really amazing, like amazing people and amazing partners where it feels like in the work that we do, we know how to dance with each other.
Yeah,
Like we're all like aware of each other's quirks, you know, like Zach and I have now been like BFF and then like life partners for like over a decade at this point. Like our partner John T, we've known, you know, just as long. And even though he wasn't a partner all those years. So like that helps so much,
yeah,
you know, and like the day to day when like you have people that like you can like come together and like make some magic with. And then also like what we've done over the last few years, and this has been like fun and it's like a real exploration, was like a process. And that is what I think is so cool about like every designer, that like over time, like you are forced
Yeah. Oh
basically
yeah.
to come up with a process. Like in the beginning years, you're like every project looks different and like that feeling around like, but then like over
Yeah.
time, it's like you like do a project that like you there's always like this project that's like the best project that you've done in your job up to that point, and you're able to like look back and like, yeah, there's like a real process that's unfolded. And then it's like, now cool, like, and then you test it and you're like, here is the process. And there's like
Mhm.
slight shifts to it. And then you like iterate on the process and you find parts to make it get better. But it's like that becomes like your intellectual property, like the thing that makes your projects really amazing. And it's
Mhm.
like that's why like the work can also be like good, and you can like work for clients and they can see it. And like, like what we're saying, like there our perfectionism. Like, so all of a sudden, like we have these really high standards. We have like a process that can like not guarantee, but like pretty well guarantee like a certain outcome of things, and like you follow it, and like you just go step by step, and then you have like I've got my people to help me go step by step through it, and like it like leaves room to like make a lot of like a lot of magic, but while making sure that like you finish the project of like what you agreed to do.
How do you find balancing the personal and the work? Because I find like working with somebody, I don't know if I could work with a partner. I feel like that would be like a lot.
It's interesting. I think in the beginning, like Jonty and Zach looked to me as like really like the person to like lead things through a lot more. And now it's like equaled out a bit more. So in the beginning, I think it was quite maybe easy for me to like get my way, or for like what I recommended for people to do. But
Typical older sister.
I know, right? Where like I think, and it's a combination of things where I think also Zach and Jonty, like Jonty is like one of the most brilliant people I know, but was like he had been doing a lot of editing for many years, like on the book side of thing. Zach had like never had a job before. So I think it was like quite easy for them also to just be like, you lead the way.
Hmm.
And then it like as it went and the projects got more complicated, I would find myself in these situations like I can't I can't lead. I can't do this on
Yeah.
my own. Sometimes I don't know, and it took me a really really long time to like learn how to ask for help, which is like I don't know how to do this thing, or like I need support here, like, or I'd
Hmm.
like, get to a point where I'd have like a bit of a blow up and they're like, "Whoa, we didn't know you needed help, or we didn't know you needed like that you were struggling." And so, like, the dynamic started to, like, shift when, like, I knew how to, like, start asking for help, and then because it also opened up a space of, like, "No, we're actually, like, a team. It's not me telling you what to do."
Yeah.
And because we're all friends, like, I mean, there's times where Zach says I can make things a little personal, um, but
Uh-huh.
mostly but mostly, I think that, like, it's pretty good, and, like, because and, like, that's, like, the benefit of, like, being really good friends. Like,
Hmm.
the things that maybe like
Yeah.
trigger the people. You know where they get really caught up on, because we're all really good friends. Like we care about our friendship most important, like over the work. That like that is always the priority. Like the space in which we come to the work. Like we don't want to have to sit in meetings like feeling like passive aggressive or stanky, like I don't
It's
like,
the worst.
like that vibe. So
Yeah.
it's always about like keeping that like friendship first. Nothing matters as much as like this beautiful friendship that we have. And then from there, like we just get ready and like get into the work. And if we like need to stop a meeting, we stop a meeting. But like mostly we just figure it out. And so I would say that like my friendships with like and partnership with both Jonty and Zach have like gotten like stronger and like more evolved in a way because we also work together. Because then you also get to like appreciate people in a new way too.
Yeah.
Like I love being able to like appreciate Jonty, how he feels like my creative soulmate in a way, like where we get to like bring out like the best in each other. And part of the way that we're able to do that is because we like really care about each other, like personally. And then like Zach too, and like to be able to like see the people that you love like grow in new ways and like create space to like it's not my company, it's not my way, like like step into that and
Mhm.
create opportunities for people to like really show you what they're capable of is beautiful.
There's something to be said about co-creation because I've been on my own since the beginning, and I work as a creative director for Snow Collective, and Dan Snow, who brought me in around COVID era time. We have a friendship first, and then there's just a different energy when there's respect in the room, and you
Totally.
both know that you are very skilled at what you do. I'm skilled at what I do. Let's bring those two things together to make something bigger than what it currently is. I think that
Yeah.
there's something to be said about there where there's no ego involved, because
A
no one
hundred percent.
I love that. I love that energy. That's why I want to hold on to this working relationship as long as I can, because I'm able to just do the creative. That is something that I am not trying to come in and be like, I think that when I don't know what I'm talking about.
Totally. I mean, I really think like when it comes to a lot of creative work, like three brains are better than one. Like,
Hmm.
especially when you have people like that have like different skills than you, like that co-creation where like John Teal always brings a different perspective, Zach does, and like and also when you can work with people who know how to like give feedback in like a really constructive way, like I feel like there's nothing more satisfying than like you doing what you think is your best work, but then someone coming and giving just the right feedback of how it could
Hmm.
be better. Or actually you presenting something and hearing a reason actually why it might not be as great as you think it is, where then
Yeah.
you get to like take a step back and like look at fresh air eyes and be like, sweet, like now, like let's do something better. Cause the truth is like the first iteration, the first go at something is like I mean like sometimes it is like the best and you go back to it, but like rarely is it like a perfect thing.
No.
Like ideas need work, you know, they need to like you need to do something, step away, come back to it, have like different eyes on it. And I think that like again like part of like the creative execution, the things that like you see, like the amount of work that's gone into it and like different ways of approaching it and looking at it, the exploration, what you're talking about, like how many different ways can we take it? Like what's like the final thing that is truly like the best
Hmm.
only really comes, I think, like from like a good, you know, co-creation. And sometimes that co-creation is with the client. Like I know you work a lot with
A
yourself.
hundred percent.
So sometimes it's like the client giving feedback. And I remember like early years, like when you like do a logo, like in your head, you think as if like the only right option is like they love it right away. Like I remember like those early years, like making work and like them not like liking it was really hard to take because I felt like I didn't fully know like how to respond to it. Cause the client often is like, I like it or I don't like it, or I don't like that
Yeah.
color, or it's not right. And it's like, you're like a young designer. You're like, how do I sit with this? Like, I don't know. So you try a million more things, hoping that like within that million, there's something that you like. But now it's
Hmm.
like with experience, it's like if they're saying like, oh, maybe this is not right, it's like, okay, like tell me, like let's dig into like why might not it be right? Is it not, you know, solving the problem in this way is like aesthetic off. Ugh, I feel like there's a lot more conversation and then you can like look at it from numerous lenses. So that also doesn't scare me anymore. And I
Yeah,
feel like
you
I can,
can't be.
you know, I can like really welcome like iteration and like the challenge of it like not being perfect. Cause I always know like if we don't get it right the first time, like where the project's going to end up is going to be like a really great place because they didn't just like take the first thing and we're like, yeah, this is great.
On the flip side of that, though, and I agree with everything you just said, 100%, because it is co-creation with the client. I'm helping them to create this brand through what they're looking for, their vision, their goals. But at the same time, I find the more experience I have, the older I get, I'm actually more comfortable and confident in saying, I don't think that's right.
Oh yeah, it's true.
I don't think that's the right thing. And there's been so many times where they're like, well, I just want to see it like this. And then I know I'm like, I'm gonna do this just to placate you and make you, so that I did it. But I'd say 9 times out of 10, they say, oh yeah, no, I like the first one. And I'm like, yeah,
It's true.
you're hiring me for a reason, right? And actually,
Absolutely.
recently, as a little side note, it was the 1 out of 10 that happened where I don't love lower cap, like small caps. I
Okay,
don't.
yeah, yeah.
It's just not for me. And they wanted to see the word mark with like a small low caps, and I was like, I'll do it. I just don't. And I showed it to them. I said I don't think it works, and they went with it. They're like, no, we love it. And I'm like, okay,
No,
like
there
if
you
you
go.
want it, but but it is interesting where you see the people being like, oh, I like this thing. And I'm like, oh. It's ugly.
I
I'm like,
know.
uh,
Oh, man. There's sometimes battles that you're like, "I'm not gonna die on this hill. I'll
that's
just let it." Yeah.
exactly.
But it also is satisfying. I say, like, it's fun when I think about, like, when, like, the younger years where you're presenting, like, so many possible options, where now in, like, these years, like, you show one thing, and, like, young design me was like, "Wait, what? You're only showing the client one design, like, one
Mhm.
direction? Like, you don't have," because in school, if we come back to school, you're, like, working on an assignment where your teacher's like, make a logo design. I want to see 50 rough drafts before you like get down to the last one.
Mhm.
And and sometimes you do that, but like sometimes like you really don't have to. And so then you go and you show the client like the best direction, but it's often just one direction. And then like that's like the baseline where you like tweak from. And so I find like that is such a cool like place to arrive at where like younger me would never have expected that like that's where you kind of land.
Oh yeah, and I find that if I do too many iterations, like usually I like to present like three. That's my usual go-to. Like here's three different looks, three different approaches. Because I'll be honest, I still do so many iterations because I'm always like, what I want to back to the exploration piece.
Yeah,
I like to see what can it be, and that's on me. Like I like to make sure that I exhaust all of the directions that I can go in the state that I'm in, because where you're at when you're creating something, it's all dependent on like what's going on in
totally.
inside, right?
Absolutely.
There have been so many times where I'm like, I shouldn't show them more than a couple, because then it's gonna confuse the out of them, and then it's gonna cause more work, because then they're gonna think of, oh well, we can go in this direction, we can go in that direction. Oh, but I want to see this.
Or the combine. Can we combine parts of like direction like one and two?
It's too much, and then so now I'm like, girl, don't do it. Like it's not even because you're like, oh, let me show you like how much I've been thinking about this. It's more like, this is gonna shoot me in the foot.
You know what I was just thinking when you said that? You know that audio meme? Like, "Girl, don't do it.
Oh,
Don't do it.
girl, don't
I
do
did
it.
it."
I did it. That's literally it. 100%. It's me having the dialogue with myself.
Right?
Oh man,
Uh,
we put so much effort and energy into helping others achieve in their businesses by creating their brands, creating websites that are going to propel them forward, whether it comes to how their clientele interacts with them online and their brand, or like for you do like e-com and sales and all of that. And so that's like a whole other ball game. Do you ever find that when it comes to your own business, like that is like the forgotten child, where you're like, yeah, you'll get a haircut in 6 months, like it's fine.
it's true. It's true. Although, yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been wanting to do like a bit of like an update on our website for a while. But I would say the update I want to do is like actually adding more projects, which is always really
Mhm.
funny when I feel like, oh man, we haven't like added work in like since like 2020 on the website yet. Like we still get like people like recently, like the biggest client that we've ever had, which we're working on right now, like went to our website and like loved it, like loved the
Mhm.
work on it, which just really tells you something. Like if you're a junior designer out there, like, or not junior, just like a, you could be any level,
Mm.
like put really good work out there. And like sometimes that is like enough. It doesn't have to be like constantly updated all the time. Like, which
Who
is
has the time?
like just make like something worthwhile that like you really feel like fits you. And like sometimes that works to just like, like put energy in like other places because like our website, I feel like when we did do it in 2020, I think that's when we launched it. It felt like, again, like when I'm talking about finally when you create something that you're just like so pleased with it. Like our current website, it felt like when we did that, like I loved it. I still love it when I go back to it. Like, yes, there's some tweaks here and there, but I'm like, this is actually great.
Mhm.
And so it feels fine to like leave it up there. It like gets this work. But having said that, it could totally use like an update of like new work that we've worked on, projects that like we're really proud of that should be up there. But yeah, that's always the case. It's like the forgotten child.
That was one of my goals this year. Was I have to start, not this year, within the last year, I'd say. I was like, I need to really put more effort and energy into pushing myself. Like all the things that I do for other people, I have to start doing for me. And so like I do have to force myself to sit down and be like, yeah, I gotta sit down and do all this other stuff, because it will actually help me to be able to continue working, right? My website, I got an overhaul within the last little while, and I've been like continuously adding content, and because you can't just work for other people, because then you're really exhausting all of your energetic
Yes.
resources.
Totally. But I guess like, and this is where like my business coach the other day, like in asking about like this big project that we got, he was like asking about like, how do you think you got it? And I think like, yes, we need to like take action as entrepreneurs and like do some of the work. If anything, to just like let the universe know that like we are open, like we're open to
Yes.
opportunity. We're like putting our best foot forward. And so I think that like the action that you're taking right now of like wanting to like be creative, and I know that like this podcast is like a really amazing way of doing that, you know, because it also takes like sometimes it can be hard about like, oh, like let me just like make a whole bunch of designs for this and that. Like this is a interesting format where it feels like fun. You like talking to people. You're like a super amazing person and like animated, like really connected. It's like podcast Geo is like really is smart for your brand,
Yeah.
you know, to do
Mhm.
that. But it's interesting because I would say at Superfine, like we leave a lot. And this is like, I'm not saying this is good business advice, but we leave a lot up to like letting things unfold and
Yep.
come. And I know like people sometimes think that's crazy, but like when we need work to come, I am connecting. Like I will look for it, but like we don't post on social media. Like every now and then we'll post on LinkedIn. But like the one thing that we do that feels like the only thing I can really control is like having a very high standard for the work that we do. So
Yep.
like the work that we do, it's like always just it feels like our best in a way. But other than that, like I gotta say, like knock on wood, we've been lucky, but it feels like high standards have meant when people like come see the work, that the work comes. And I'm currently not doing really any other marketing besides just like what's up there and just like being patient. And so I feel like that is also an approach. And sometimes you do, you know, the magic will work for you.
You really do embody that though. Like I'm not, once again, like you've inspired me to approach work in a way that is, because I dabbled in a couple of YouTube videos last year, and I
Yes.
was like, this doesn't feel right to me. Like
Mm,
oh, like let me tell you how to design and whatever. I'm like, to me, this format makes more sense for me. Like you said, I love to talk about people about like what it is that drives them. That's interesting to me. I like to talk to people about their path and the things that they do in their work, their creativity, etc. That's always been something that I love, because it really does galvanize me in my own work.
yeah.
But to go out there and start being like 5 tips on branding, which I honestly could do, like I might still, I'm not ruling anything out. So approaching it in a way, going back to you, where okay, I need to like really think about who am I as a person now? What is the energy I want to bring, put out there, and how am I going to attract, it's like putting out that radio frequency, that this energy that I'm putting out, like it's going to attract, and you're going to get things that don't, like it's normal. But
Totally.
how can I approach my life in a way that is going to make sure that how I'm being is going to bring forward the things that make sense for me when it comes to client work or projects or even just my day-to-day life? And I feel like that, like I've started doing that because it's become part of me, but at the same time I'm also, our relationship, I'm looking at how you do things. I'm like, this girl, I'm like, is she gonna, do you have a secret book? Like, I don't get it. Like, who did you talk to?
Oh man. Just have the faith. I feel like that's such like a big piece of it, and like
Hmm.
not faith in like, you know, the God that they, you know, want to preach to you about in church. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but
Yeah.
having faith in like I think is like even like yourself. And again, this is like also like not like don't put all your business like it's not supposed to be like be all business advice for people, because I've done all the business coaching too, which is interesting to have like gone through like a lot of it and like see what sticks and what doesn't. And I love what you were actually talking about, like what's authentic to you, and like
Yeah.
that, I mean, the 5 things about branding I think is like a perfect example, because yeah, like you see so much online and it feels like people are doing like the same thing. They've
Yeah.
like asked AI what is it, they've looked at articles and are like pulling bits from articles, and like there might be a point where you do a 5 branding thing, but it'll be like so authentically geo at that
Yeah.
point that it'll feel like really really fresh. um but yeah, if it's not authentic, it doesn't work. And for me, like what it feels authentic right now is like keeping my head down to like do really good work on the work that I'm doing, because that's kind
Mhm.
of like like the work that I put out, it does draw in other people. And like, it's funny how it works, and that's why having the faith is like, do the work. Like, that's what feels authentic to me often, is like, how can I do the best work possible? And like, have faith that like the projects will come of the people that want the same standard of work.
Yeah.
And like, that's what is my like authentic non-marketing marketing at this time.
You talking about the way that you approach things will resonate with a lot of people who don't want to approach it from this like shark energy, because that's not for everybody. Not everybody operates that way.
And the
I don't.
hustle. No, like also like the hustle. Like it also it took a really long time to like learn that like, oh man, like hustling is I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't
No.
feel good on my nervous system, like that rushing. And it's like, like
And like it's so true.
like it just doesn't feel nice. And it's funny because I feel like just like day to day, often without meaning to, it's like in my head, I have a narrative of like, oh, I gotta move quickly, like gotta rush. Ugh. And it's like
Mhm.
over time, it's like I've built in my head this idea that like I'm always in a rush in a way, or
Yeah.
like moving fast. And it's funny because I like will walk into like the edge of like the table, or like, bang my toe, things like that. And Zach is always telling me like, move slow. And like
Mhm.
often I'm like moving in this whirlwind when like no one's chasing me. Like
No.
I'm not being chased by anything like yet. Like the hustle culture and all of this, like move fast, you gotta do this, you'll be left behind. Like it's like, it's interesting how it like imprints on you. And I feel like I've been like really like having to like work hard to like slow down. Like for
Mhm.
me, like that hustle does not work. I'm very much like a trying to like move. So like I try and create as much spaciousness in my life as possible when it comes to like the projects I want to work on. I want to work on them from a place that feels like really spacious, that like I'm not just trying to rush one project to the other, or that like I'm sitting down to do your work and I'm gonna do it as fast as I can. Like for me, like some people are really good at turning out quick work. I that's just not how I work. My
Mhm.
process isn't like that. John T, my partner, like he definitely doesn't work like that. Like we have to go through it. We have to talk about it. We have to work through it, and that feels really good. And so when I see like so much of the hustle out there, like, and I tried to do it and it didn't feel right. Like, hearing people like, for your business to grow, for your brand to go, you have to be posting every single day. And it's like, man, like the people that do that, good for them. But like, holy crap, does that take so much effort? Like you have to move so fast. Yeah, so fast to do that. And like I look at people, I'm like, yeah, that's one thing. And for people, business owners that like want something really fast, like up and running, like I gotta start up, I need to like launch tomorrow. There's actually like, a lot of great people who they'll be able to hire that like work really fast, that are like into that hustle and can like
Mhm.
match their need to hustle. But for me, it's like I move slow. I'm very methodical. I'm spacious. I want to just like do a really good job at like a certain level. And I know that that cannot happen fast. We have so much strategy that goes into our projects that takes time. We can't rush it, but it'll be great. And like when I do finally kind of like maybe start posting again or marketing, it will be from that point, like of like trying to like help people take a deep breath. Like, or the people that I want to work with, like people that are looking to like when it comes to business and trying to like make a living and like an entrepreneur, like exhale. Like we can take like a big inhale and an exhale. Like in a world of hustle, like let's take a deep breath. And if like you're someone that like needs to take a deep breath, like I'll take that with you. And like at some point, I'll like maybe try and communicate that more.
Once again, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass, but you are somebody who also, outside of client work, you're somebody who will give yourself projects, not give yourself projects, that's not the
Yeah.
right word, but you will create pathways for yourself when it comes to, a self-expression, not to sound cheesy, but it is what it is. I want to talk about the self reunion because that is
Okay.
something that I've recently found out about. Like you would kind of, I'd seen, the account pop up on social media, and like I looked at it, I was like, oh, it's Sarah, I'll follow her, whatever, support. But then hearing you talk more about it, I feel like it has evolved in a way where you have been saying this, you've been talking about this thing that you have
No.
been wanting to do for years, and finally it has, like, it's kind of come together. So talk to me a little bit about it, because I'm like, I love that you're doing this.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I would say the first iteration was 2022. And I know that because like that were some of like the first posts I had on there.
Hmm.
And I like built the site, and it was actually inspired by like 2020, 2021. part of 2022 where like those were my hard business years that I was talking about, where I felt all of a sudden like, what am I doing? You
Yeah.
know, like I don't want this. Like, do I want to quit? And that's when I did like a ton of business coaching. And then through that coaching, there was this one workshop that I did, which was called like the Dream Project Workshop. And it was supposed to be a project that, like, as a piece to add to your portfolio, potentially for client work. But then, like, as I started taking the workshop, I was like, I do not want to make a pretend client project.
Yeah.
Like, actually, like, F that. Like, I just want to do something fun. And I don't even truly know like how it fully like evolved and like what was coming, but it was like a feeling of just yeah, wanting something for myself that
Mhm.
like I wasn't worried about like what anyone else might think of it for the most part. Like it didn't need to be for anyone else, just for myself.
Mhm.
And like I spent so much time like learning a new platform, like it was Show It, because I wanted to be able to like build it all myself, like drag and drop. I got to like bring in my illustration skills and I poured a ton of time into it. And then that year that I brought it up, I also did a retreat with my two friends that we called the Self Reunion. And like I made a page. It's not there now, but it was like a retreat page. But then it's interesting, like I let it drop. And the whole premise of this project was supposed to be around like a place for me to like reconnect with myself. And I think I have as like the opening that it's so easy to like feel sometimes not like yourself, which is like a funny thing to say. And that like I'll like there's times where I'm feel like I'm living so completely in alignment and like feeling like my truest best self. And then there's moments where I'll like be checking in with myself and be like, wow, like I do not feel like that self. And it's funny because like the word journey often comes up. Like it feels like a journey to get back to that place, but actually
Mhm.
like there's nowhere really to go, you know,
Yeah.
like it's yourself. Like drop whatever thinking you have and be back with that. So
Mhm.
I'd like created this project as a way to like constantly check in. And I had created part of it, which was these like love letters that I wanted to write for myself and then get other people. And I have some friends that shared letters, which was very tricky trying to write a love letter to yourself. But I had this project that was, but then I dropped it. It's like, you know, when you're talking about like how like your own personal stuff sometimes gets like, you know, pushed aside.
Yeah.
And like, you know, after that, it's like we got really busy with work again. Um, and this project like laid dormant for so long. But then I would still be like painting on the side. And that's the thing about me, like the explorer,
Yeah, I love it.
forever starting many micro projects on the side, like getting into block printing, getting into other things. But recently, there was like a call back to the website again.
Mhm.
And again, yeah, it's like it's so important for creative people to have projects that they can work on that aren't about making money. Because I
Yes.
don't know about you, like a lot of the time, yes, like creative projects can be like another stream of income. But I felt like
Yeah.
I was in this place in my life where anytime I tried to do something creative, like the block printing, which I've been doing, but when I started block printing and did my first print, I was like, oh man, like I could like sell these. You know, it's always through that lens, like, oh, look at this thing I made. I could totally like, you know, sell it. And so I think I got like distracted for a while with some of my creative projects. Like, can they be turned into anything? And
Mhm.
like the minute I did that, the self reunion dropped, which was supposed to be this place just for me. And then so I'm back to like, you know, coming back to it. And again, it's like just that call within my heart of like really needing like these like last several years again, like that inner work, that like inner exploration that like I'm always doing. I feel like so much has like come up and like been uncovered, and it's nice to have like a place where I can put it, you know, to post it, like kind of like journal entries that
Mhm.
can like live in a way. But unlike a paper thing that only exists in one format, it can be like illustrations you can add to it. So yeah, it's kind of like I think the self reunion, like I paid for it for like 2 years where I wasn't doing anything, you know. And in my head, I'm like, I just paid like $800 for like something that like I'm just like letting sit with
That's
nothing,
it.
but knowing, but at the same time, like there's that inner knowingness that's like, no, like it's there and it was meant for you to like when you find your way back to it. And I'm sure like I'll go through periods where it's like give it a lot of energy and then maybe it like slips away and to come back to it. But it's like hopefully that project in my life that I can just like keep as like a an archive of like the evolution of like my thinking, of my practices in life, of how I'm blending the business, like the insights that come up from that, with just kind of like my own personal growth, and then hopefully like posting more of like the artwork because I've actually been building like a body of work on the side outside of that website. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of like gets merged onto it.
I can see it being that perfect like Venn diagram middle section where there's, work Sarah, which we already said there's already like a crossover of how you operate as a
Yeah,
human, how you work. But then I feel like that would be a really nice crossover of this is how I've done it my way. This is how I got to this point on my own, and not in the way that is being told to us, to hustle, right? Like it's my approach to living a balanced life of entrepreneurship and also, internal balance, which obviously is, we're always struggling and working towards it. But because you've hosted workshops in the past, you've hosted what's the term for it? Not workshop, but
I do retreat. Is that the word
retreat.
you're looking for?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And so like I feel like that would be like the perfect, art,
100%.
business, life, like nice blend. And also putting, not to like, I'm not telling anyone how to do their thing, but I feel like you have an energy that you could put out into the world online that would attract people, right? Like I truly believe that that's something that once you take all of these elements and put them, not that you're not doing it, but you know what I mean? Like once it kind of has a bit more, has a bit of a, like the output is there with all of the content, etc. Like I feel like it could be something really big.
I agree. And it, like coming back to like, talking about like your first like attempt of like the clothes and all of that, is like the skill stacking,
Yeah.
and I feel like the self reunion is like I'm okay with like giving it time without like not having the hustle, like giving like
Yeah.
runway for things to evolve. And I think like,
Yes.
yeah, like running that retreat all those years ago, whole new set of skills to have learned. Like
Hmm.
anyway, so I feel like it will um become, I think, something more, and I'm just like letting it kind of like happen.
Yeah.
And I think it's like inevitable, but it's like all these little skills stack on top. And I think, I mean, when I did the retreat, it was such like a beautiful opportunity to like bring all of those things together.
And one day I will make it to one of the retreats. I promise.
Yes.
It's on my to-do list before I kick the bucket in this life. But so we are nearing the end.
Okay.
And so what I wanted to ask you, and this can go either personal or professional, if you were to look at your life, your existence, what would you say is the most on-brand thing you've ever done?
Oh my God.
Everybody's reaction is
That's
exactly the same.
a good question. I would say move to India.
I was, if you were stumped, I was gonna be like, that's exactly what I
Yeah,
would have
like
said.
moving to India, and then like the part two of that, like making like building my own house, like designing my own house for sure. Okay.
Talk a little bit about how you designed your own house.
I know. It was actually like many years in the making. Backstory, tiny bit. I had a house in 2014 that I was about to renovate. My aunt was in Canada that summer, and I was like house sitting for her dog at that time. There was an electrical fire when I wasn't in the house, and her house that I'd been living in all summer with all my stuff burnt down. And then she was like, "Oh my God," like she's, been in India for the past 40 years or so. And she's like, "What do I do?" I'm like, "You should take this house that I've been renovating and really love, this little beautiful mountain house, but you should have it because, it's really close to yours. Then you have a house to come back to." And then I found the house that I'm currently in now, which would have been like 2014, 2015. The first renovation was like major DIY, like painting, like using a stencil to paint the floors, all of that. But then during COVID, I've been like living in this house. It's a very small house, like 300 and like 20 square feet, 340 square feet for the entire thing. And I'd been living in it for like at that point, like 4 or 5 years. And as a designer, you always think like, how could this be better? Like how could it really work for me? And then in 2020, I was like, the house, it was really old at that point, like it needed work. So I worked with a carpenter and a mason to like basically like tear it down to the structure and then like rebuild it. And I got to rebuild it where it fit me like so precisely. Like my closet, I like measured everything
It's
that needed to go in there, like
beautiful.
precisely, like, you know? And so like every little thing about it got to fit me. And I'd show the carpenter drawings and he'd be like, huh, you know, he's like never done that before. I'm like, trust me, trust me. And he would go with it, he would do it. And then after he'd stand back and he'd be like, oh wow, like that looks
Mhm.
really, really good.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's like that high standard, you know, like the perfectionism. I got to do it, like bring it to like the super aesthetic
Mhm.
where it fit me perfectly, like the spaciousness of like who I am and like the space I wanted to create it within, but to have it be warm and cozy and friendly. And so I got to like just make it like perfectly me. Like my house feels like a hug. And I feel like when people walk into my house, they can like understand almost who I am without even knowing me. So,
Sarah, this has been amazing. I'm so happy that you said yes to this. Like this,
yeah.
as we said, like this is a passion project for me. And so to be able to ask the nearest and dearest in my life to talk about their paths and talk about themselves and just, shoot the shit with you guys. Like I am so thankful for everybody who says yes. And so I just appreciate your time and you coming on to be part of this.
Always a joy to just like connect and hang out with you and talk and see where the conversation goes.
Yeah, I know. And like I feel like we could go on forever, but I
I know, I
also
feel like we're
can't.
just getting started,
I
you know,
know,
like
and
we're
like
just getting
I
started.
can't put out a 3-hour episode. I'm not Joe Rogan. But so to anybody who's listening who would be interested in reaching out to you to connect, to work with you, how can they follow you and reach out to you?
They can go to superfine.design. They can just email me from there. I think our email's on there. It's Sarah at superfinecreative.com. They can go to Self Reunion and connect with me there if they want to see a bit more of like a personal take of my life. And if they're inclined and feel like writing a love letter to themselves, I have instructions on how. And they can send it to me and I'll post it if they would like. But other than that, just hit me in my inbox. I'm not like really big on the socials at the moment, but I'll always answer an email.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And to anyone who's looking to connect with me, you can check out the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can leave a review, follow, subscribe. I'm also on YouTube under GeoGraphic. And if you're all looking to work with me, potentially talk about branding or design, you can reach out to me through my website at geographic.com. And once again, Sarah, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Bye.